So I appeared on Sam Seder's show today. I called in, and my main reason for calling in was because I had tried to call in yesterday, but I had been waiting on the line for over an hour. So what I did was I fired off an email afterwards to the Majority Report email address saying, "Hey, I was waiting this long. Hey, next time at least give me a few minutes to discuss the issues I wanted to discuss." And to be honest, I wasn't expecting a response. But sure enough, today, around 1 o'clock or so, maybe it was around 2, I got an email from the email address saying, "Hey, we're ready to have you on. We'd love to talk about this with you." So, I wasn't in a great situation to talk at that point. I was in, a cafeteria. I had my cell phone and all that. Obviously, wasn't using a landline in that situation. But I felt it would be worth it to talk to Sam and make the points I wanted to make. Unfortunately, due to a number of factors, I was sort of prevented from doing so. And I look back at my performance there and the points that I made, and it wasn't my best debate for a number of factors, as I mentioned before. So the fact that it was just sort of out of the blue to me, that explains why there was lots of confusion. There was lots of cutting out with the audio, lots of issues with that. I wasn't fully prepared to do that today. I was not expecting it until I got that email. Another thing I want to touch upon, when I called in, I said my name was Vinny. That's just sort of an alias I use for myself. Adrian Marcolini, that's my real name, and I have no problem telling people that. I don't care too much about being anonymous on the internet. Whatever, just call me what you want. And Sam was able to figure that out because when we had our email back and forth, I used my personal email and it had that name on there. So, whatever. Now to the content of our conversation. So, I came into this. I didn't come into this out of malice. I didn't want to deliberately, cause a ruckus or anything. I just wanted to touch upon some very real macroeconomic concerns and implications when it comes to things like this Green New Deal and other large-scale government spending programs. So I started off explaining how the crowding out effect works. The crowding out effect isn't considered a fringe theory. It's something that is discussed in mainstream macroeconomic circles. So basically the idea is when there's this massive government spending program, there's a demand for money. The government, the Treasury Department, doesn't create money. They don't have any sort of effect on the supply of money. They can only demand money. The only people who have an effect on the supply of money is the Federal Reserve. We'll get to that later. So, yeah, with this large demand for money, that creates upward pressure on interest rates. And when that happens, private sector investment falls. And the point that I was trying to make before I was interrupted was in the long run, when the economy corrects itself, I'm using economics jargon. Maybe that was part of my fault. Part of what was wrong with my argument there was because people couldn't really understand what I was trying to say because I was using, these economic terms. But basically, in the long run, private sector investment as a percentage of total output declines. And that also has a negative effect on multipliers for GDP growth with respect to things like government spending. So in the long run, it does create this a pretty negative effect on growth and private sector investment. I'm not going to say too much more about it right now. If you're interested in hearing more about the crowding out effect, there's tons of literature on the internet. I saw some great stuff with the Khan Academy, fairly basic, but really goes into depth on the points I was trying to touch upon. So I was trying to make that argument, but Sam cut me off right when I started talking about interest rates. And he said basically that it wouldn't create excessive demand for money. It would create an excessive supply of money, which is just plain wrong. But the way in which he said that with so much confidence, and that paired with the fact that Sam is a fairly well-established name in political circles, that sort of made me second guess myself, even though I knew in my heart that what I was saying was correct, which it is. But that's why I kind of seemed really thrown off when he said that. It seemed like I was the one who was the idiot there. But if we were, talking with some actual economists, there were some actual serious economists in the room, Sam would have been the one who had been laughed out of the room. And I think eventually Sam realized that he was wrong in this debate, in this conversation, and that's why he tried to redirect it towards, just dumb base level superficial stuff like, what is a negative, whatever I said. What is, why does it matter if there's less GDP growth? Because, Green New Deal is going to create public sector jobs, and I took the bait on that, and that's partly my fault too. I wasn't expecting him to redirect the conversation that way, and I'll give him credit for that. He is very effective at, when he's in situations he's unfamiliar with, redirecting the conversation, making you seem like the one who's an idiot. And he was effectively able to do that with me, and I wasn't expecting it at all. So yeah, and in terms of the green energy specifics, that's not my wheelhouse. I'm not, the most informed person when it comes to some of that. But yeah, I still stand by most of what I said, and I don't hate the guy. I don't hate Sam. I think he has good intentions, and he's a funny guy. Like, you gotta admit, he's a funny guy. But I want him to stop being so condescending. I want him to actually listen and not be, super cocky on, topics he's not super aware of. He should have listened to my entire argument before interjecting and saying stuff that was false. There was also a part, I didn't realize this at the time, but there was a part where he tried to make the argument that quantitative easing by the Federal Reserve would have the same, or it has the same impact as something like the Green New Deal, which is just demonstrably false. Anyone who knows economics can tell you that those are completely separate things. Quantitative easing is increasing the money supply. Meanwhile, a massive spending project by the government only increases the demand for money. Again, the government doesn't control the money supply. The Federal Reserve does. And most people don't even understand that distinction, and that's a problem. And one of my goals is to educate people on issues pertaining to monetary policy and independence of the Federal Reserve. So anyway, I've been talking for a while now. I'll shut up and I'll take out.